You will find there are certain people that claim to have narrated a lot from the Prophet of Islam. The only reason that person became a Muslim is because he wanted food and money that is given to the Prophet of Islam. Because they wanted wealth. Likewise, because the Muslims have power in Madinatul Munawwara, people were fearful now. If I claim to go against the Prophet of Islam, it may be that I'm in danger. And that's why you find it's only in Medinan surahs of the Holy Quran that the munafiqeen are spoken about, because this is where the environment was such that nifaq was able to grow. And you find very interestingly that in these surahs where nifaq is spoken about, look at this verse, the verse that I have quoted. When the munafiqeen come to you, what do they say? Innaka, surely. La Rasulullah, surely, verily. Inna is used for emphasis, lam is used for emphasis. So they come showing so much emotion that we have no doubt whatsoever. We don't just say you're the Prophet of God. Verily you're the Prophet of God. Look how Allah replied to them. Allah said, Innal munafiqun lakadhibun. You place inna and lam to say you believe in the Prophet. Allah placed inna and lam to say you are a liar. In other words, the scholars took from this, the amount that the munafiq shows that which is untrue is the same amount that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds and exposes the munafiq in this world. The exact same amount Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds and exposes the munafiqeen. And that's why we're told that the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, mentions in regards to the hypocrite, because as the verse has said, hypocrisy is a type of kidhb, is a type of falsehood. He said that the person that lies and is a hypocrite is no different to a person that is dead. He said, why ya Rasulullah? Why do you take the hypocrite to be someone who is mayyit, no better than the dead person? He said, because what is the reason that a living person is greater than a mayyit? He said, what ya Rasulullah? What is the reason that a living individual, a hayy, is better than the mayyit? He said, because the living person, you are able to depend on them for your needs. If I need something, I can depend on a living person to get it for me. Whereas the liar and the hypocrite, even though they're alive, you can't depend on them. So in the way that the dead person, if I'm in need, would I go to a mayyit and say, I'm thirsty, give me water? Of course I wouldn't. The body is in front of me, what can they do? Whereas the munafiq likewise, even though the soul is still in its body, I'm unable to rely on a munafiq. The Prophet of Islam says they are exactly like a deaf person. If the second question then has been understood, why it was in Medina that these verses were revealed. The third question, and very important discussion, that the scholars had were the different types of nifaq and hypocrisy that exist. For we were told that the first type of hypocrisy that is present is hypocrisy that comes in regards to belief. And many during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, their hypocrisy was this type of hypocrisy, that I show myself to believe something whilst in my heart is kufr and disbelief. Or I show myself to believe more than actually I accept. Here there's something very interesting in the verse that we need to understand and be aware of. Quranul Kareem says in this verse, they came and said, you are a prophet of God. They are liars. That statement in itself, you are a prophet of God, is that not a true statement? Innaka la Rasulullah. You are a prophet of God. Where's the lie in this statement? Innaka la Rasulullah. You are the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the messenger. The statement was correct and in accordance with al-waqi', the reality. Why then were they called liars? So the answer comes no. Kidhb, when I call someone a liar, is of two types. One in Arabic they called khabari, one they called mukhbiri. What was the difference? One type of lie is when I say something that isn't true. Someone asked me how many people were in the majlis today. I said 8,000. Of course that's not true. That's not in accordance to the waqi' and reality. This is one type of lie, where that which I'm informing about is not true. The second type, what I am saying is correct, but I don't believe it. I came to a Nasibi, a hater of Ahlul Bayt, And مثلا he told me that Amir Ali ibn Abi Talib is Amirul Mu'mineen. The statement is correct, but does he believe in it? No. Therefore, sometimes a liar is such because they say that which is not in accordance to the waqi and the reality. This is one type of kidb. The other is what they say is correct, but because they don't believe in it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them a liar. And so the statement in itself was correct. But because these munafiqeen and hypocrites didn't take the Prophet of Islam to be the messenger of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them liars. And this nifaq, the nifaq of aqeedah and belief, is one of the most dangerous types of hypocrisy that we can face. And if you read what is mentioned about Akhir al-Zaman and that which takes place before the Dhuhur of Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, Ajjalillahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif, you find this type of nifaq will be present. Where a person claiming to represent the religion of Islam, the madhab of Tashayyu, or a person, for example, who is saying that I preach the aqeedah of Ahlul Bayt, will express one thing, but in their heart will be something else. You find this? They say to you something, but in their heart they have a different type of belief. This is one of the most dangerous types of nifaq that exist. And a lot of the verses referring to the munafiqeen during the Prophet of Islam was in relation to the first type. The second type of nifaq is not nifaq to do with belief. Rather, it's nifaq to do with a'mal and action. What is meant by that? You may have seen people. When you see them in the masjid, when you see them in the community center, they act in a certain way. As soon as they go home, they act completely different. They present to you one thing, at home they are something else. That's why we're told often, you want to know the reality of a person. Why are we told by Amir al-Mu'mineen? Travel with them, live with them. Because often a person has this nifaq of a'mal, where I express a certain action in front of others, at home I'm completely different. In fact, if there was a competition between him and the rest of the dhalimeen of the world, that person would win. Because at home he is the biggest tyrant to his family. Whereas when you see him in the masjid, he seems like an angel sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was a nifaq of a'mal. This was a nifaq of actions which was rife within many people. If you truly wish to see whether you have this type of hypocrisy or not, see. Would my action be different right now if someone was in front of me? Do I act in the same way when people are around to when no one is around me? If I see that I act differently, I speak differently, I present myself differently, this is one type of nifaq. Or for example, also from this category, sometimes I don't have to say something. I express myself to be in a certain way. For example, in jurisprudence, we have a type of kidhb and falsehood called kidhbul iddi'ai. Meaning what? Meaning I don't say something which is false. I present myself in a certain way. So imagine a person has no background in Islamic studies, has never studied a day in his life. And he placed on his shoulders an aba, and he entered in. He hasn't said he is a student of knowledge, student of religion. Just the fact that he is wearing it is him claiming that I have some type of knowledge. However, in his heart, there is nothing but ignorance. This person is also classified as a munafiq, because you express something whilst in your heart it wasn't there. And so this second type was that I have certain actions in front of the people, certain actions when the people are not there. And an example of the opposite of this, where there's no difference between my action, whether someone is there or not, was mentioned by Anas ibn Malik. Anas ibn Malik is someone whose mother gifted Anas to the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Bismillah. And she said, this is a gift for you, Ya Rasulullah. He will be a servant in your house. So he would live with the Prophet of Islam. The Prophet of Islam would take care of him, but he would also serve the Prophet. Anas spends 9 years in the house of Rasulullah. And once they asked him, Anas, was the Prophet of Islam ever angry with you? What did I say? In front of the people, he's same as he is at his house. Was he ever angry with you? Anas said, never. But there's one incident that I'll never forget. I said, what is it, O Anas? He said, it was Shahr Ramadan. The Prophet of Islam goes to Masjid al-Nabawi to lead the prayers of Salatul Maghrib. And then he would come to the house and he would have his iftar. I prepared iftar for the Prophet of Islam, which was what? 1 glass of milk and a small piece of bread. I kept his iftar ready. Maghrib time came. I'm waiting. I want to also break my fast with the Prophet of Islam. He hasn't come. So I thought maybe the Prophet of Islam has been invited by someone else, one of the companions, for iftar today. So he's not going to come. So I thought there's nothing else in the house. Why don't I take that which I had kept for the Prophet? So Anas said, I drank that milk, I ate that piece of bread, and I thought that was the end of it. Just as I had finished this meal, the Prophet of Islam entered. I came to him, I said, Ya Rasulullah, have you opened your fast? He said, no. What do I do now? I've eaten that which I had kept for the Prophet of Islam. There's nothing else in the house. Now imagine someone has come home. Iftar time has already passed. They're tired, they're hungry. They come and there's no food there. Even worse, someone has eaten the food that was kept for me. What hell would be present in that house at that time? How angry would be that person? Anas said, the Prophet of Islam said to me, no, I haven't broken my fast. He went and entered into his room and began doing ibadah. Anas said, until this day, the Prophet of Islam didn't ask me, where is my iftar? I don't even know what he broke his fast with on that day. He didn't even ask me, where is my food? What have you kept until today? I don't know how the Prophet of Islam broke his fast. This is someone who's exactly the same, whether he's in front of the people or whether he's at home with his family and close-knit people around him. This type of nifaq is shown where those closest to you know your reality. Those in the public eye, those around you in the public don't know your reality. This was the second. The third type of nifaq, which in essence is a branch of this, was nifaq and hypocrisy when it came to akhlaq and morals. And here we find that sometimes it may be that I don't have the intention of being a hypocrite. I don't want to have nifaq. But because I'm unaware of certain issues to do with the Sharia, my intention may be good, but in actual fact I am also classified as being of the hypocrites. Like what? Like someone will come to you and say, anytime you wish to stay in my house as a guest, you are welcome. Even though inside, they don't want a guest. They don't wish to have guests. If you don't wish to have guests, you don't need to tell that person you're welcome. Akhlaq is one thing. Expressing something like this is classified as nifaq. Certain ulama, they would write. One of the maraji', he lives in Karbala. He writes a letter to one of the ulama in Iran. So normally the maraji', when they're old, they don't write the letter themselves. Their son, someone in the office, writes the letter. So he says, write to him that we are okay here in Karbala. So he wrote that. And write, for example, what they call in Farsi, ahwal pursi, how are you, this and that. When he wrote the whole letter, the marji' looked at it and said, this part, remove it. Which part? You've written here, I remember you a lot when I do ziyarah. He said, this isn't true. I remember him sometimes. I don't remember him a lot when I do the ziyarah. Sometimes I forget to remember him. Even something like this, which you don't have the intention of hypocrisy, according to Islam is classified as nifaq. For example, with people like me, it happens a lot. And I'm sure Mullah also knows. For example, when they see us, Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin. Sheikh, they put titles. When they're with other people, oh, that person who's got a turban on his head. This is also a type of nifaq. Even though we don't have the intention, it was classified as hypocrisy. And one of the beautiful examples of this was found in the life of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, where certain scholars have mentioned this hadith where the Imam is with his son Ismail. They're outside of the house and a person comes asking the Imam for something. So the Imam answers him, the person is walking. They're going back to the house in Medina. Now it seems, even though this isn't mentioned in the narration, but it seems that this person wanted something from the house of the Imam. So for example, he's asked the Imam for a certain amount of money. The Imam at this moment in time doesn't have that money. It's in his house. So this person is following the grandson of the Prophet of Islam to the house so that the Imam can take the money and give it to him. They get to the house. The Imam enters with Ismail. That person is waiting outside. Ismail now says something to the Imam. He says, "Oh my father, ya ibn Rasulullah, why didn't you tell the person to come inside the house? Normally it's usual. I'm entering into my house, you're waiting outside. What would I say? Please come in for a bit. Why wouldn't you tell him to come in?" Now, of course, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam are qimmatul akhlaq, are the pinnacle of morals. But it seems here there was a reason that the Imam didn't want him to come into the house, whether because the women are present, whatever it was. Why didn't you ask him to come in, ya ibn Rasulullah, oh my father? The Imam says, because I don't want him to enter into the house today. I can't have guests for whatever reason. So Ismail says, yes, but ya ibn Rasulullah, oh my father, even if you would have asked him, he wouldn't have entered. He would have said, no, I'm okay, ya ibn Rasulullah. So the Imam says, yes, that may be the case. But on the day of judgment, I don't want to be classified as the hypocrites. I will be seen as the munafiqeen for something so small. So this third type of person doesn't have the intention of nifaq. But we need to know the boundary where there is akhlaq on one side and nifaq and hypocrisy on the other. If this has been understood, my fourth and final area of discussion is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detests the munafiqeen, and the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says that I'm not fearful of someone that disbelieves, and I'm not fearful of a mu'min, the only thing I'm fearful of is someone who is a munafiq. If we understand that this was a quality detested by Allah Azza wa Jal, what is the opposite of nifaq? So what is it? What is the thing that me and you should be striving towards? When we ask this question, what is the opposite of hypocrisy? Someone would think the opposite of hypocrisy is what is in my heart is on my tongue. What is in my nafs is shown. This isn't the opposite of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, I have something in my heart, I express something else. The opposite of this is that there is more purity inside of me than is expressed in front of the people. There's a difference here. Sometimes whatever is inside, everyone knows. The opposite of nifaq isn't this. The opposite of hypocrisy is I'm better than what the people know about me. There's more purity within me than what people realize. The people of Allah, the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have this quality, that they are much purer than what the people realize about them. And this is what someone should aim towards. Not that I do good and everyone is aware of my good. I have great qualities within me and everyone is aware of that. This isn't the opposite of nifaq. No. I have a lot. People see part of it. There is much more inside me than people realize. And I'll give you one example so this becomes very clear. There is a companion of Imam al-Kadhim and Imam al-Sadiq alayhim as-salatu was-salam, by the name of Ali ibn Yaqtin. And some have attributed this incident in history to others. Some have mentioned that it was Ali ibn Yaqtin who this took place with. Where that which is inside him, his niyyah and his intention is much purer than what people would see around him. For when a person does one thing which is good, think of it yourself. Before you weren't doing this act of good, all of a sudden I started doing something. Before I wasn't praying Salatul Layl, all of a sudden 1st of Muharram came, I thought, let me start Salatul Layl. As soon as that action is performed, Shaitan wishes you to do idhar of it. Somehow for someone to know that, you know, I started praying in this way. Ali ibn Yaqtin is an example. The good is more than what people realize. Ali ibn Yaqtin says, I used to be in Baghdad at this time. The time of Hajj came. As we know and as we have in the riwayat, a time will come when people perform Hajj, not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People perform Hajj out of fakhr. And for people to honor them and show that they are, for them to show others that we are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali ibn Yaqtin, the time of Hajj has come, he thought, let me go to Hajj. He's been a number of times to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he collects the money, he had wealth, and he's ready to embark on that journey. Ali ibn Yaqtin says, I'm about to leave, Baghdad. As I'm about to leave Baghdad, I see on the outskirts of the city, there is a woman sitting on the floor with her children. So she's a young woman, she's got young children, maybe she needs something. So I asked her, what is your situation? Why is it that you sit here on the outskirts of Baghdad? She replied by saying, Ayyuha rajul, O individual, recently these children have become orphans. Their father has passed away. I have no means to earn money for them. So we sit here hoping that someone will come and give us something. So when this was said, Ali ibn Yaqtin thought, on one side I have Hajj. What is the benefit of that? People will know that I'm a Haji. People will see me there. It's easy for me to express myself that I have performed Hajj. Everyone is there to see. Hajj sometimes became also a social gathering. On the one side we have this. On the other side, the money that I have kept in my pocket for this Hajj, this 3,000, 4,000 dinar, if I gave it to this woman, she could use it to feed her kids, for example, for 3 months. So at that moment in time, he decides. His inside is better than that which people have seen. He gave that money to the woman. He doesn't have any money left. He goes back and says, Inshallah, Hajj another year. The Hajj season finished. Hujjaj returned back to Baghdad. Many of them came to meet him out of respect. Why? They came and they congratulated him. Congratulations on your Hajj, Ali ibn Yaqtin. He says, what are you talking about? He says, yes, it's recommended that we congratulate someone who's come back from the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Congratulations on performing the Hajj. He says, I wasn't performing the Hajj. They began to laugh. We were with you in Arafah. We were with you here in Mina. I saw you in the Mas'a whilst we were doing Sa'i. I saw you whilst doing Tawaf. So this happened once or twice. He thought maybe they've seen someone else. A third person came, a fourth, a fifth. Those that have known him all their life, that wouldn't mistake him for someone else or mistake someone else for him. Congratulations on your Hajj. He said something is up here. Eventually, Ali ibn Yaqtin travels, and he would often travel to see the Imam. He travels to Medina to see Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. When he gets to Medina, he comes straight to the grandson of the Prophet of Islam. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what's going on here? A number of people have said to me that I have performed Hajj. Look at the response of the Imam. The Imam says, look, your niyyah was so pure, you didn't care about what people would see. People would see you performing Hajj. No one would see you that you fed this woman who's sitting on the outskirts of Baghdad. Your niyyah was so pure, you didn't care about what those around you see. Because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel in the form and the shape of your face. This angel has performed Hajj on your behalf. This is what those people had seen. And in fact, that same year when people would ask the Holy Imam alayhi salatu wasalam about Hajj this year, Ya ibn Rasulullah, how was Hajj this year? He would say, this year only 3 have performed Hajj. Me, my camel. Why did he say camel? That in itself is a discussion. Only 3 have performed Hajj this year. Me, my camel, and Ali ibn Yaqtin. When that which is inside isn't always expressed. Inside me is more purity than people realize. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives that person more than they can imagine.